Okay, good afternoon. We are back from break. It is 1:38 p.m. and we are kicking back off with the other funds. So I'll just pass it straight to Nicole.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we're going to jump right into other funds. Other funds are any other fund outside the general fund that the commissioners manage. There are about 14 of those that we're going to go through today. And this is just informational, no decisions, just letting you know what's going on in the funds. So if there's no questions, we'll just jump right into it. So I'm going to share my screen here. And the packet that we're working out of, it's titled Commissioner's Office Funds Managed. And there is also a document called Commissioner's Financial Plans. It's going to look like this. Detention sales tax will be the first one. So these two packets will be going back and forth. So the first fund is detention sales tax. Detention sales tax is 0.1% for juvenile detention facilities and jails. In 2024, you can see at the beginning fund balance is a little under $2 million. With the proposed revenues and expenses coming in, we're looking at the ending fund balance to be a little under 600,000. And then again in 2025, carrying that forward with the proposed revenues and expenses, we are showing a deficit. But we did look at this fund at the beginning of the budget process, so I'm going to open up the financial plan. And we looked at possibilities to make this fund whole. We noted that the expenses that are in the juvenile detention line or corrections jail, that these expenses here, that we may need to reduce those. And we propose reducing those. This is the red line at the bottom, about 500,000 in 2024 and $1 million going forward. This still leaves us with a deficit in 2025. And one of the major things contributing to this is our revenues that are coming in, our sales tax revenues that are affecting our general fund are also affecting this fund. But also there is a project in here for camera upgrades. And that is the line where in 2023, it starts with 30,000. In 2024, it has 370, and then 800,000 in 25 and 26. We've been working with other financial staff in the department to see if there's a possibility to reduce the $800,000 in 25 and 26 to $400,000 out of the building reserves fund to try and make this fund whole.
Were you getting the red reduction of expenses?
That would be a policy level request this year to move those into the general fund.
Is this fund a county-wide tax or just unincorporated county?
Yeah, so it's countywide, it's sales tax, it's our sales and use tax.
And do we get the full amount, or do we do a 60-40 with the cities?
So we get the full amount.
And that's what, roughly $10
We're-
million a year or something?
Yeah, about $8 million we're projecting.
So I'm confused. The number here, is the red like layered on top of the, because that 277 in the hole is exactly what you had on the other thing. So you've already, is that already been factored in?
Yes,
or this
that's already
isn't?
been factored in.
So even if we reduce the expenses by the amount that's requested, which we haven't seen what that looks like yet,
Right,
we're still gonna be facing this deficit.
right. And so we're looking at ways to lower the cost based on the camera upgrades project, because it's just a one-time expense coming out of the fund, and bringing down the 800,000 in 25 and 26 to $400,000, because we may be able to use half of that out of building reserves. Therefore, your fund balance would be positive. 2025 would be about $123,000, and your 2026 ending fund balance would be $160,000.
Otherwise, we just don't do the camera upgrades.
There is an option. I do.
No, and that is not a good option.
Okay.
It is an option, but it's not a good option because the cameras in the jail are failing. So we need to replace that system. No cameras in the jail would be a very bad thing.
Liability-wise is what you're referring to.
At a minimum.
We can buy the Ring cameras.
That's what I'm along.
Yeah, I mean, I get that you can't, I get that, I get that having this fancy integrated system is ideal. I get that there's a liability issue of not having operational cameras, but there is some point in between those 2 points where you have a camera to cover, if someone says they got stabbed by a corrections officer, there's a video that says they didn't, but it's not this Cadillac system that we'd like to have. And we're in the,
I'm
we're in
with
the
you.
needs, not wants
I-
category right now.
I'm with
So
you.
there's gotta be an absolute bare minimum to protect liability concerns, but without necessarily buying stuff we can't afford right now.
Buy 25 Ring cameras or whatever they are that you buy from the internet and set up. Let me just say something before you get going there, Robin. I've got family that knows how to do all that stuff. And they have cameras like at their front door or something like that. And they can turn it on and off and look anytime they want. They do that with their phone. And the camera itself alerts them anytime there's anything that they've selected they want to be, and it even turns on a light. And so, and I think it's like,
It's $79.99 at
yeah, it was-
Costco, right?
Yeah, it was. And why can't we do something similar to that? Buy this crazy Cadillac purchase all the time.
I love that you know the price.
So,
Did you start on this just to get me fired up?
No. You know how I am about the cameras. We've gone through this every single time, and we had that whole thing about all the cameras outside all the buildings, and we asked the question, give us one example of a crime being solved.
Yeah,
by-
which we can't.
By an
give.
external camera, and I don't think we ever got an example.
I can give you one example now, and it's the example at the FJC.
So,
However, that aside, we can certainly bring in the capital project staff and the jail staff to explain to you this project and why a camera system that they're proposing is necessary. In the meantime, we are looking for another way to pay for this system that is not out of this fund because this fund is tapped out.
you know, foundational public health, inmates, we're responsible for their well-being and the health of those unfortunate individuals that get put in jail. And I think that foundational public health is not too far of a stretch.
We'll take a look at that, Commissioner.
Either that or the Ring camera, one of those two things.
All right.
And I'm not
But-
endorsing any one product, that's the only name I know it by, so I guess there's several.
There are several. So Nicole, just a clarification. I think that we put this into maintenance level because we must balance this fund.
Yes. We put.
Yeah, so that the
Tell-
500,000 and then the 1 million in year 2 are already in maintenance level. So that's reflected in the fund balance that you've already seen for the general fund.
I thought they were in policy level underneath the department, right?
This is a policy level change and it's sitting,
Oh.
because it's the jail, it's sitting in sheriff corrections. It's not a commissioner or a non-departmental request.
So we'll talk about it.
Okay. But it's already been factored in. And this is a must do because we have to balance the fund. We got to get some costs out of here.
So then what's the recommendation? Like there's,
The recommendation is to do the reduction of a 500,000 in 24 and 1 million in 25 ongoing. And then we're trying to figure out where to transfer the cost of this camera project to.
well, if we were to shift the camera upgrade, how much would we have to?
That would balance the fund and that's where we'd be. We would still have to transfer out some of the operational costs.
I'm not sure we need the camera yet. I don't know. I'm kind of with Commissioner Mansur on that.
Well-
I'm not convinced. I know it would be nice to have, but I ran jails for many years with no cameras. know much of anything, and we survived. So it's not the best way to do business, but what the heck?
So question for tomorrow.
Okay. So we'll jump over to the trial court improvement fund. These revenues come from reimbursements from the juror mileage and fees, as well as salaries from our district court judges. And so I'm gonna jump to the financial plan. And this plan is healthy up until 2026, with the revenues coming in and the projected expenses. The Superior Court and District Court do a very good job with staying within their means here. What we see in 2027, which is outside of the biennium, is that there is a project for family and juvenile security improvements. And it is showing $2 million in 2027. This fund can't support that, but it is put in there as a placeholder, just to be aware that there is a need for security improvements there, and we will need to look at ways to fund that. And that's shown right here. Other than that, there is nothing further I have.
What's going on with family and juvenile court improvements?
So
So,
yeah.
go ahead, Nicole.
I was just gonna say that it's $50,000 programmed in 2024, but I think you're looking for something maybe more than that.
Yeah, the next one's 400 or something.
So the FJC have requested for the last couple of years space improvements, and as you know, the FJC is occupied by Superior Court, the clerk's office, and the prosecutor's office. They all have space in that building, in addition to the juvenile jail. So all of the offices have expressed a need for additional space. We've been working with them to just try to figure out exactly what the tenant improvements are that they need. And then the 400,000 would be to execute those improvements.
I have to say, I don't think time for improvements is while the budget is being decreased by 10%, whatever it's gonna be in the end, 8%, I guess.
Okay, I don't disagree with you. However, I would say that the trial court improvement fund can only be used in ways that will improve trial courts. It's not like we could use this money for FTEs. And there are very limited things that we can use it for.
Well, I don't know if they've got other needs, but I mean, if they've got other needs, it doesn't even look good to be doing improvements when the budget's, when we're cutting.
I'm right there with Commissioner Edwards, and I know that this is separate, but I mean, if you look at 2027, right, like it goes in the red.
2027, there's no way we can do a $2 million project out of this fund. I mean, I'm just gonna
Well,
straight up, that's obvious. So
you know,
that is,
But what's it doing there?
A placeholder to recognize that that's what.
it
the
is
purpose
in
for
the
that.
CIP.
Yeah, it's
So,
on the CIP.
I have a question in regards to that judicial salary contribution from the state and how that's measured out. This is like, it's funny what you pay attention to, like different years. But this is, I guess, the first time I'm really noticing, that, and I knew we got money from the state, I just didn't know how much. And the fact that it's actually gone down, even though we got a new judicial officer, so now we have 9, and judicial salaries are set by the state, and they're
I thought it
at
was
like
half.
So-
200,000. Is it, so what is that?
So let me clarify what the revenue is. This is district court judges, judges only, the state of Washington calculates half of the district court salary, because for Superior Court, the state pays half of the judges' salaries. It does not go anywhere close to the county finances. It's just paid directly. But for district court, they don't do that. So instead, the state will pay us what is basically half of the district court judges' salaries. And you see how much that is right here. And then we are by law required to establish the trial court improvement fund. And then it can only be used to improve trial courts in both Superior and District Court. It's very restricted.
When you say improve trial court, we're required to have security at certain trials. Why isn't that an improvement if we hired security with that fund?
So we did check into this a few years back, on whether or not the fund could be used for staffing. And the opinion that we got was that yes, it could. However, if you start to, you see that this fund does not have very much revenue coming in each year, roughly a little under 70,000 a year. If you start to charge personnel to this fund, then you lose the ability that we had to charge improvements. Like, we used this fund to redo the secured entry to building 2. And we used this fund when they needed jury chairs. And there are just minor things that we do where the money is available to get it done. And once you load this with the ongoing personnel costs, you lose that capacity. The board also has an agreement with both Superior Court and District Court that, excuse me, that all three must agree to the way it's being spent. And right now the agreement is on small one-time items, or court improvements like you see in 2025.
Well, except we can just rewrite the agreement. That's pretty simple.
Well, we can certainly bring in Judge Buckley and Judge Wilson to chat with you
I
about that.
realize they all have needs that are necessary. I'm just looking at every nook and cranny I can find to come up with offset money. So I don't know what we have over there for corrections, not for security deputies. I don't know exactly their title anymore, but they probably have 5 people rotating through or something, so they can have a certain amount of coverage or whatever it is, and that comes out of general fund.
I'm not, so I'm just, I know that we're not making decisions right now, right? But I just, for me, a court improvement and juvenile security improvement, first off, I don't think the time is adequate as we're embarking on in the huge main campus remodel. I don't know why we're starting another study for another project we're trying to bite out of the apple too much. And I think we should address what we need to address first, and then after, we're near completion or done, then we can start addressing another piece of this. But trying to do everything at once, I mean, we also have the Mottman complex going on right now where, we're trying to,
I don't remember, I don't understand Commissioner Mejia's original question, the answer, because how does $67,000 equal half the salary of the district court judges? There's 3 of them, who may all make double that, at least.
Yeah.
So what does that 67,000 represent? How is that calculated? What is that paying us for? It's not covering half the district court judges' salaries.
It's my understanding that that is what the calculation is.
Well, that's not
Uh,
anywhere close to being the right
We
calculation.
got Judge Meyer,
I
Judge
think it was
Wilcox, and
the,
Judge.
all right, so we will double check on the calculation. It was my understanding that it was half, but you know, you say that and I go, oh, that doesn't look like half to me either. So we'll double check that.
How about, let me just ask, being you're gonna double check things, how about taking a look at Superior Court too, because what do we have there? Nine courts.
This is absolutely not have anything to do with the salaries for the Superior Court.
But I mean, if you're this much off on District Court on 3, just take a look, so we get an idea of, are you right on Superior Court? Cause it's about $1 million we're talking about.
Okay, so
None of the salary for Superior Courts distributed into this fund. It is solely
they get
the
paid
cost of
directly by
District
that,
Court.
so there's nothing to account for. Well, I have a question though. So I understand $2 million from 2027, that's a, just, you know, I know,
Yeah,
that's
that's-
public works too, like if we can get the money, great, that's what we need to do. But this 400,000 in 2025, is that allocated to a specific project? And it looks like there is
Yes.
capacity for that. And what is
Yes.
that project exactly? Is that the space need thing you were talking about?
Yes,
Okay,
it's the tenant improvements that we've been working toward that project for the last like 3 or 4 years.
and you guys say the optics are bad, we shouldn't even plan to do that in 2025.
4 and 5. Well, I mean, we're gonna plan for it in 24, for 25. And myself, we've all gotta suffer a little bit, that's all. We're all in this game together, and, I probably support the courts as much as anybody, but the reality is, we're in a pickle. And as far as the only reason I throw the security of that side of the court system out there on the table is because, you know, we're drawing down general fund for that security right now. So I'm trying to do whatever I can to quit drawing down general fund, because that's where the problem is.
Okay, so we'll take those notes and we'll get back to you. All right, so the LTAC fund, Stadium Conservation and Art Center. I'm gonna jump right to the financial plan here, but we can see at a high level that this fund is doing well. There is a policy level request in to increase the award by 100,000. So you can see in 2024 that it's $150,000 asked for board awards. The baseline is 50,000. The policy level request is to get it to 150,000, so 100,000.
From 50 to 150,
To 150,
and the fund can support that.
and the fund can support it.
And this is the LTAC money. It can only be used to support tourism activities that are intended to increase hotel use.
Well, we're gonna be able to make an adjustment on that next year.
If you'd like to, yes.
Yeah.
The next fund to look into is conservation futures. This is based off of our property tax to help with protect it and preserve our open spaces and our habitats. You can see that this fund is doing well at a high level, and I'll bring up the financial plan. And there's a lot of lines here, but the major thing to look at here is our beginning fund balance for 2024 is $8 million. With the projected revenues that are coming in through property tax, we have $500,000 dedicated to projects. We have $500,000 dedicated to the HCP. And with those standing expenses, we are looking at still leaving the fund at $8 million.
So you have a lot of capacity in this fund to do other things that are, they of course have to be eligible for conservation futures. But if you wanted to purchase more habitat land, if you wanted to do more in the grants to the land trusts that are buying easements, if there were some specific project that you were aware of that, we could pay for with conservation futures, we've tapped out the M&O. There's no room left. All of the M&O money goes to support the parks and trails, but other than that, there's a lot of capacity in this fund.
We did have a funding request from the Capital Land Trust regarding their education center for $100,000. Just, I don't know if that fits here, but just a reminder.
How about
We
that?
kicked them to we said we'll discuss it in the budget season.
Well, if we said we'd discuss it, I think we should then. What about the pickleball? I heard something about pickleball this morning. What's that about? There's some shortfall on something and it would be eligible expenditure because it's kind of a park thing.
City of Rainier,
I don't think it's eligible.
but it's not eligible.
It's not?
Not for the
I
conservation
thought it was for a
features.
park.
Essentially park impact fees or REIT two, but not conservation
Well,
features.
conservation can't be in parks? I thought there was a certain amount that
I
was.
don't think it could be a pickleball because you're not conserving anything, a pickleball
Paving.
court.
No, that's we're going back to wellness again, public health, dollars, cause pickleball makes you healthy, I guess. I guess you run around on a court. I don't know anything about it, but
So we have used this fund to purchase parks or to contribute toward the cost of parks.
yeah, I thought we had
We-
something.
We used this fund toward the rack in Lacey.
Yeah, same thing, pickleball rack, pickleball court.
Parks are a allowable item in conservation futures.
The item that Commissioner Menzer mentioned as well, I mean,
I guess the clarification would be, the conservation of the land versus potentially improvements to the land. I don't know if it could be used for improvements.
well, let's take a
We'd
look.
have to look into it, but.
Yeah, let's look into that and see.
There's two possible things to consider for the conservation features.
Yeah, we'll look into the City of
I
Rainier.
mean, there's no point in starving ourselves if there's actually money to buy some potatoes with. Can't buy any steak, but we can buy potatoes.
The next fund is TCOM 911. This is a pass-through fund, so the revenues that we receive from sales tax come into the county and we give that directly to 911.
I don't
TCOM
think we
911.
got anything hardly to say about it.
Yeah.
They're pretty healthy.
Yep. So the financial plan just shows that the revenues coming in go out. The next fund is PEG, our Public Education and Government, based off of our franchise agreements. And we can see that this fund is fairly healthy as well. Its beginning fund balance is a little under 150,000. And the revenues coming in are decreasing, as we know that the franchise agreements are coming to an end. However, we could see that capital expenses in 24 and 25 of $88,000 to support the policy level request for the public information specialist.
When you say coming to an end, just
Nope.
reducing a little bit.
Reducing,
Yeah.
reducing.
Right, so, and the revenue, while it's, memorialized, if you will, in the franchise agreement, the revenue is actually a tax on landline telephones. So the less landlines we have, the more people convert to cell phones, the less PEG money we'll see come in.
Yep.
Yeah.
The next one is our tourism promotion area. So this has to do with our interlocal agreement, our tourism probationary, so Olympia, Tumwater, Lacey, and Yelm, where we're projecting that we'll have $1,000 in revenues, and then we'll also, $1 million in revenues, and also $1 million in expenses. So that fund is pretty straightforward as well. So this is some good news, I mean, not all bad news. Historic preservation, so the revenues that we get in from the auditor fees that we're getting, these are used just for historical preservation and historical programs. And so I'll go to that here. So these are our doc fees that we're getting in. We are seeing at the current time that they're decreasing, but that's the state of the economy that we're in right now. But this fund is fairly healthy and it's able to support the projects that we have set up. So $40,000 every year for grant programs, as well as $10,000 for other historic projects and our historic journal. So it supports all those activities.
What's the big reduction going on there? Is that directly affiliated with reducing and comparable paperwork that's not being filed for 24? I mean, it's cutting a big chunk out there.
Specifically about the revenues decreasing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our doc filing fees have to do with the fact that transactions maybe for real estate are decreasing, and so we see the impact of that in this fund.
So we should have a very similar reduction in revenue or percentage wise on our REIT funds.
We are seeing a decrease in our REIT funds. That is correct.
Do they match that same kind of a reduction?
It's not
Huge
apples,
drop.
but it is.
What was that?
Yes, we see a huge drop in REIT. You're about to see it. But not only REIT and Historic Preservation Fund, but also the document recording fees that get deposited into the general fund and into the housing funds.
Yeah, it's just I mean, it's a good example of what we're faced with, the reduction in revenue. But it really is all the way through. Sales tax looks similar. Everything is very similar to that example.
Right. This is why the whole story of this budget this year is flat revenue. Revenues are not
I mean, not even flat. That's way less than flat.
right in this
Would be
area, it is
$277,000.
right. What we're losing here is not being made up with growth in property tax and sales tax.
Right, yeah, they're flat as well. Everything's flat.
Right, everything's flat.
So,
And I might remind you, inflation is about 15% over the last 2 years, Robin. I just want to remind you that. In some cases, Public Works projected 19% on one line item, so. I just like to be consistent.
Yes. So,
I'm sorry, can I ask about, so I was just noticing, I just asked somebody that the Thurston County Historic Journal, I haven't seen it in a while. I was wondering if it was still going.
yes.
I know one of the guys who was really integral to its production was ill, and so I was just wondering, but I see it here. So it's still up and
Yeah.
running?
I had a conversation with Dana just recently, and she showed me the journal, so it's still in effect, and they are still producing it.
Okay, good.
So this is our COVID fund, our ARPA fund, where we're holding all of our revenues that we got in, our $56 million. We deposited the $56 million, or we included that in our beginning fund balance, so now you see us just spending it down, so you won't see the revenues necessarily portrayed here, but we have a briefing every other month to talk about the projects that are equated to ARPA, and so this is showing it at a high level, the current fund balance, how we're intending on spending it on 24, and then in 25, where everything has to be spent by 2026.
By when?
2026, so obligated.
For
for
ARPA.
ARPA.
Yeah.
So that's another positive before we jump into REIT. This is REIT 1. So this is our half of our 1% that goes into our first quarter REIT. that we use for our countywide billing. I'll jump to the financial plan.
Did we get an ending fund balance on, cash fund or whatever yet? You know, that comes out once a month.
No, not yet.
It's not out yet.
Maybe
Are
tomorrow.
we still running in a deficit on that
Yes,
REIT one? How can you keep doing
Yeah.
that? I mean, I'm just curious. If I do that on my checking account, somebody gets upset.
so, we talked to the treasurer, and I thought that we had talked to the board about this when the treasurer and the auditor came in a few months ago. The treasurer says that our money is in one large pool, so this particular fund has a negative balance in this particular sub account, if you will, but overall, the county has a significant amount of money in the pool. So as long as we're balanced by the end of the year, and I've presented a plan to you for how to get there, we're okay.
Right.
The pool amount being in excess doesn't cover us at the end of the year, is that what I'm hearing?
So
But
at the
okay
end of the year, we want it to balance.
At the end of the year, it has to balance, huh?
Well, there are occasionally a fund here or there that has a negative balance at the end of the year, but we strive to have them all balanced at the end of the year.
Don't rate one, rate each other.
Yes,
Yeah.
and REIT 1 and REIT 2 roll into each other, so that also
That's right.
talks to the ending fund balance and the overall fund. So the plan that Robin was speaking to address the needs of this fund are shown in the column labeled 2023 projected. It's this $2 million here that's in blue, called as a transfer in. So we spoke to the plan where we have some revenue, some REIT revenue that we've used to seed other projects that we can ask to come back now that those projects have sufficient revenue sources to support their activity. And so one of those is $400,000 that we're saying was use as seed money for the courthouse project that we can now pull back into this fund. As well as the flex unit that has about $400,000 in it.
Could you tell me which one you're on here? I'm missing the vote.
Yep. So the financial plan I'm looking at, it says fund.
Is on page one of
The title,
3160?
yep, 3160.
What do you mean by the flex unit?
We had planned the project at the jail, and I don't remember quite when. I want to say right around the time of COVID, we pulled the plug on that project.
Yeah, it was April 2020. I remember exactly. when.
There you go. So that money, the seed money for the project, has just sat in the jail fund. And what we're proposing is that since that project is going nowhere, we close that fund and bring that money back into the REIT fund.
And that's 500,000?
400.
About roughly 400.
How come it says 500 there somewhere? Jail
Capital projects, 500.
500, yeah. What's that about?
I don't have my ruler, but
It does say $500,000, so based on the analysis on what expenses were already, that came through, that we feel comfortable being able to transfer 400 out.
We had done the planning work necessary for that project, so that was 100,000 to have the A&E, to have the plan to go forward.
Yeah, but
You may recall that we pulled the plug as we were about to advertise for construction.
yeah, I remember that, but how come it just kept carrying through at 500? We didn't pay the bill for 4 years or something?
No, that 500 was transferred into a different fund for the jail project. We spent 100,000 of it out of that fund. And no more. So now we're gonna pull it back into REIT.
Okay, where is it now? If it was
In
moved
the
out of
jail.
there in 19, or I guess moved out of there in 20, I guess April of 20. Where is it at now? Where'd that 500 go?
In the jail fund.
Sitting in the jail
in
fund.
the jail fund. So we took 500,000 out of this REIT fund and we put 500,000 in jail fund, spent 100,000 of it. So we have 400 sitting there. We're
I
gonna
know,
bring
but I'm
back.
not seeing it anywhere there.
You wouldn't see because
See
this
it.
does not reflect the expenditures from the jail fund, just from this REIT fund,
Right.
where it went out of. So 100 was spent, so
And-
leaving 400 that can come
I
back.
know, but it doesn't even show 100 spent.
It
Not on this sheet.
was spent in a different fund.
Okay.
Is that a separate page that we have coming up?
So I'm still curious where the 400 went, though. I don't see it here. That's all. Where's the 400 that got moved? I mean, apparently 500 got moved before, but 100 was spent.
Right, and so the 400 coming back is part of this $2 million in blue. So in column 2023 projected, this blue.
Yeah, I
here,
see it.
It says $2 million.
Yeah.
So 400 of that is from this jail.
Cause I'm getting it now, the 500,000 that you're looking at, Commissioner, that's under the expenditure column. And the expenditure was just movement to another fund.
Right.
And then
Right.
whatever happened there, we can bring 400 back. And that's
Right.
shown in the blue number.
And so that fits on that 200 right
And
there.
2 million,
2
yes.
million.
Or
2
the 2
million.
million, yeah. So what of that can we use? Of that 200, of that $2 million, what of that is available to us to do what with?
So we're projecting to use all of that, all $2 million to help make the fund balanced.
To balance it out. Shore up the decreasing revenue.
Yeah, I guess I'm getting, the longer I study this, the dumber I get, I guess. So I don't know, I'm not gonna claim to understand. I might have more questions about that later.
Sure.
So, where's the rest of the 2 million funding coming from? We covered 800,000.
Yep, so we also have other projects for the same way that we took the revenue out of here and we put it into another fund, into building reserve. So we have some pre-trial service space that we did improvements in. We have building for resource room and a number of other projects that we use REIT funding to seed that project. And so of that, that'll be another $450,000 that we can bring back. And then the last is about $750,000, and that was a transfer for building 3 for the jail that we'll also be able to bring back.
Building 3 for the jail. To do what?
Is that correct, Robin, right? Building 3, jail, that's a lot of history, guys, so I have to ask her about it.
No, you're right. Let's see, we call it the old jail.
Is that what you go, the old
The
jail?
old jail probation.
I could follow the numbers, but the history, I need her. She's quiet.
Just a long time ago, we were gonna do something to renovate that space and it never got done, or what's?
No, I'm quiet because I don't remember
I know one thing, we were planning on
the
doing
old
something. The
jail being
military
on
was
that,
gonna
yes.
rent space from us or something once, and we might have needed to do something.
So that makes the 2 million. I can find out the history for you.
Well, I get the economy.
If you look, justice. Building 3 justice service space. That,
I'll make this larger so you guys can see
You're
it.
gonna point at that?
Yep, it's this column, this right here.
Justice service space, got it.
okay, but that was not the old jail.
That's not enough.
That was to make improvements so that we could move the probation office down into the old jail space. So technically it was improvements to the old jail, but it was not for jail space. And it was a project that got completed.
But
So it was
you're saying
completed.
there's something, that's the 700,000?
Yes.
Right.
So what we're saying is if you look at these projects, the building for resource room, the countywide security improvements, the Building 5 parking lot, the Building 3 justice space. And then that's the courthouse project is the 700. So I'm still not quite sure what 750 connected to the old jail was. But if you add up all of these projects, we could have paid for those out of building reserves. So what we're proposing is that we go ahead and charge those projects to building reserves instead of REIT.
Cause now there's
Okay, instead of REIT, and then put some money back somewhere else, or what?
It puts money back in REIT. We would pay for these projects from building reserves. There was enough money in building reserves.
So the projects were collecting, or those buildings were collecting reserves year over year based on our rates. At the time, it appears through the numbers that there wasn't enough in the building reserve to pay for that project, and so we paid for it out of rate.
I would not say that that's the reason that we paid for them out of REIT.
We just decided to pay for them out of rate instead of building reserves.
Right.
Okay.
There was a request to pay for them out of REIT. We could have paid for them out of building reserves, and I'm suggesting at this time that we do that.
So that puts the $2 million back into the fund.
And,
It is tricky, right? Like the transferring back and forth and, yeah.
Alright, so yeah, cause my question was going to be, if we weren't in this kind of crunch and needing to do this, like, why would the money have just sat wherever it was? But now I'm hearing it's more about, it was gonna be paid from REIT. It's not sitting somewhere, but we're gonna shift from building reserve. We're gonna basically kind of redo the history in a way of like, this is where we're charging the project, and then the money can come back as if we'd made that decision up front.
That's right.
So that's answers my question, I guess.
Clear as mud.
One of the things, at the risk of raising another question, one of the things that the board heard recently was the allotment, just clarification around those two charges,
The Mottman,
2021 and 2023.
the 5.6 sitting there in REIT. Familiar with Mottman purchase of $5.6 million in 2021, Robin? That was, I know that's when we built, I'm trying to remember. the
I'm
history.
sorry. What is the question?
Robin, it's the question I asked you about the 5.6 million that was brought up in public comment, how it's sitting there looking like it's been charged twice or whatever it was.
Oh,
for
okay.
2021.
Well, if you go up to the revenue section, Nicole, right. So you see the money coming in. That's the money that we borrowed from, I think, ER&R.
Yeah, ER reserve, it says.
Right. And then we paid it out to purchase Mottman. And then what you see on this financial plan in 23 is that we paid back the loan. We put it on this line so it was clear that it was connected to the Mottman. We could have put it on any line of this plan. It really didn't matter. But this way it's clear that we didn't pay for Mottman twice. We paying back the loan to ER&R. Technically not debt. It's an interfund loan.
it just doesn't say that, maybe, huh? It says loan from ER&R reserve.
We could easily put that number on a different line of this spreadsheet if you'd like us to, and say repayment of the loan, but we put it on the Mottman line because it was there and it was connected to that project.
Okay. long as you guys can find it, I probably never could.
I got it.
Okay,
Never forget.
all right. So we move from REIT one, if there aren't any more questions, to REIT two.
Route two,
So REIT two, there are a lot of lines in REIT two, and the reason for this is that we track the expenses by project. And so I'm trying to summarize this fund. I would start by saying that the revenues that are coming into REIT two match the revenues that are coming into REIT one. And that is based on the decrease in revenues that are coming into REIT, so that is impacting this fund and the projects that we can do. I would drop down to, in 2024 column, to the projects or programs that are in colors, to speak about the major programs. So this major program here is your trail connectivity program, budgeted at $1 million for 24, 25, and you see that going out for the rest of the years here. The reason why it is in green, I am going to jump to the last page or down at the bottom of this page here so that you can see that this is a recommendation which Public Works will be able to speak to you, saying that they have, I believe, $1 million. They're foregoing the $1 million in 2024 because they have carry forward appropriation to still do work in 2024. So they don't need the additional $1 million. And then in 2025, to reduce the $1 million down to $500,000 out of this fund and to use park impact fees to help cover the difference. Right? Would you say that's?
Yeah, I think it's trying to help to balance
That's the fine.
everything.
That's
As
the
well-
2 million in red there?
It is
Okay.
the green.
I see 200,000 in green.
It's the line above that says $1 million. The trail connectivity program.
Yeah, I see that, but that's $1 million.
Yep.
Down below, you said go down below to the bottom line item, Country Club Road, Green Cove Creek,
Um,
and it shows 2 million there. What's that about?
I'll find that one, 2
In
million somewhere.
24.
Okay, this, I think you're talking about this line right here. So Country Club, Green Culvert,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah, that's it.
they're anticipating spending $2 million in 2024. Public Works is asking for that project.
Is that considering we still got that money from one of our senators, Senator Cantwell or somebody's, Senator Murray put in for some money?
Right, so I believe there is, she's not up there, but I believe there is like a spreadsheet that's talked about how that project's funding was going to be split. I believe there's some public loans, right? And there's also, funding from REIT, and there's some grant funding, and as far as what you're talking about is too, is some state money coming through. So in conjunction with all of those revenue sources, this is the $2 million that's part of that overall
And
project
that
cost.
still needs to be part, I thought that we were gonna get some relief somehow with that federal money that was coming.
We are,
Relief is
we
going
are
to
getting
the
the
source
relief.
alone.
and the relief is against the loan. Because remember, to make the project whole, the full price of the project, we're gonna take out a loan from Department of, I wanna say ecology. But we're gonna get that grant. It's not a grant, it's loan. So when we got the grant, we reduced the amount of the loan that we're going to get. We still need this 2 million from REIT.
Hey, Ben's, we're talking about REIT, and I don't see it on here, but it kind of bugs me, but I've asked you before about this building was supposed to come with a certain amount of parking. But we're paying, I think, $20,000 a year for this little spot across the way here. So where's that money coming from that we take that money out and pay?
So the parking money for the atrium is coming out of the building M&O. It's not coming out of REIT at all. because we do not pay for M&O out of either REIT 1 or REIT 2.
Okay, so building M&O for this building or the total building M&O for all?
Building M&O is for all county buildings.
Where does that money come from?
Rates,
Comes through the rates.
It comes from where?
rates,
Rates.
Rates.
internal services.
Oh, internal service rates. So that's a 60-40 split or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the trail connectivity program that I just wanted to bring to your attention. And so you can see though in 2026, we are looking at going into the red by $1 million based on the revenues that are being projected. So at that time, we'll need to revisit some of these projects and see what things we'll need to pull back depending on how the revenues come in.
So the changes you've described, we still have that problem in 2026.
Yes.
You know, partly, I mean, that's a timing issue, right?
Right.
Because of our ability to deliver on various projects, while they are programmed in a particular year, it's often given materials and times and contractors is just taking a little bit longer, so some of this could be extended.
That's true. So it may not happen in 2026 if a project doesn't come to completion in, say, 24, it's going to be pushed out, the budget will be carried forward. So we'll.
I would also say that our projections in 26 and beyond are conservative because as we've shown you, the prior year's revenue in REIT is extremely volatile. It goes way up and then it comes way down. And Commissioner Edwards, you had asked if REIT reflects the same kind of drop as recording fees, and you can see right here that it does. But those are going to come back in a big way. And we've just projected, we think it's still going to go down again another year. And that's what the state is projecting as well. But it will turn around and come back up. We just don't know how much.
Yeah, but you know, I don't know, I guess our argument to the community as to why we're doing this, you know, we've got kind of stagnant property taxes, we've got stagnant sales tax, and we've got, it's way more than stagnant on the REIT transactions themselves.
Right.
Yes.
You know, this whole thing is just justifying more why we ought to be issuing more building permits faster. Cause we get new construction benefit big time on those, so.
We're working on it.
I have to say, probably not fast enough, but I don't wanna get ahead of you.
So this is the courthouse project fund. This is how we're paying for our courthouse project. We got $50 million in bond revenues or proceeds. And so this is just showing that what we expend and the project will be, it's planned to be finished in 2025. And so we'll pull in the bond proceeds to cover those expenses for the courthouse project. This shows that you're asking for connections on where $400,000 is and how we're going back and forth. This plan shows where that REIT transfer is going back to REIT. So.
I'm confused on the,
I'm more confused, so just so you know.
never mind, I think I got it.
Okay.
No, actually, yeah. Okay, I was trying to figure out. So under the projected 24, the ending fund balance is of 316 and 383, and then
Yep.
the total revenue though, for the $19,683 doesn't have the,
So the beginning fund balance and the revenue there should equal $20,000 when added.
20 million.
yeah, it's not,
20 million,
it's
excuse me.
not adding the 20 million though, on the total revenue side. Not sure if that's a typo.
Oh, so, I don't believe total revenue doesn't include what your beginning fund balance is. It's just the revenue earned within the year
Okay.
Right.
that we're
Right.
talking about. And then it's projected, it's shown in your ending fund balance being 0. So we add the total revenue plus the beginning fund balance minus your total expenses gives you your ending fund balance. Because technically, because it's in the beginning fund balance, it's no longer considered revenue because it's sitting there, it wasn't earned this year. Yeah, I know, all this budget math stuff. I mean, looking at these financial plans, yes. So we can, thank you. Okay. So now.
Jeez, I'm sorry about that.
So
I
we're
know,
getting towards the end of
everything's
these, yeah.
spread out. It's like, where do I put it?
So, looking forward to the public safety sales tax and depending on how that, the voter turnout is on that, we have put together 2 financial plans and 2 looks at what expenses could be used towards that funding source if we were to get it. So this is the public safety sales tax, the law portion, and what we're calling the law portion is after the county receives its 60% of the sales tax, 75% of that, we said we would retain to support law enforcement services, associated infrastructure, and including facilities. So right now, the department, the sheriff's office was just instructed to put in all the possible needs, not knowing what the revenue source would be like, so that's why it's showing a negative, but we would have to look into that further. They placed their change request inside of our budget system in phases, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So when you have a time to meet with them, you'll be able to look at those different phases and how it backs against the revenues that are coming in. I would say that the revenues projected in 2024 are anticipated to not be received into the county until June, so that's why you see almost half of the revenues were projected there. And so just to pull it up, this is what it looks like until we get into those change requests, into that conversation.
Could you go back to the?
Yep.
Go. So you can see that the requests that even if we're successful in November, the requests that the sheriff has put in for the next 2 years exceed the amount of money that we think we're going to pull in. So this will have to be phased in. It also doesn't allow any funding here for infrastructure.
Right, this is just personnel, associated costs for personnel at this time. Okay.
I was waiting for questions and we're not getting any, okay.
Should I go
I'm
back?
gonna do what Robin, I won't count my chickens before they hatch, so.
That's kind of where
Okay, and then the next is the public safety tax, the justice portion, which is the 25% of the 60% that gets retained by the county, just to be clear on that. And the 25%, we said that we would use this to support law and justice services, election security infrastructure, including facilities. And so this financial plan is just a what if we were to fund election services, what the debt would look like possible. So the assumption used in this fund was that we would ask for $10 million in bonds with a 6% interest rate over 10 years. And we're looking at possibly $700,000 in debt service in 2024 with 1.4 in 2025. But if you could see the way the revenues are coming in, that leaves you about another $1 million every year for other expenses outside of that debt.
So that 1.4 million should appear in every year.
Yes, yes, thank you.
And that's to cover the voter center or the,
Yes,
Yes.
the ballot center at Mottman.
Okay, I guess the 10 million, is that for unexpected expenses? Putting in a little bit of wiggle room, because wasn't it 7 million?
Well, as we saw with the voter center, once you start to layer in the needs for security and other items, the cost has gone up and the delay has impacted the cost. So we think 10 million is not an unreasonable estimate at this time.
Okay,
Inflation too.
That's the delay. Yep.
So we made it through. That's all of the other funds in the commissioner's office. The last two slides is just a summary of all the funds that we went through, the 2024 and 2025. So this is just the other funds portion of today's presentation. It was supposed to last until 3. I'm done. If you have any questions.
questions?
We get 15 minutes off.
what's next, RHC?
Yes,
Alright,
RHC is next, and that's at 3:15.
You get a half hour.
Wow,
What,
okay,
3:15?
so let's go ahead, take a recess.
Oh, wait, before we recess. There was a question this morning about no, this is a quick question. There was a question this morning about the numbers for the, PEG equipment.
Yeah.
Whether it was 88, which was what Nicole said, or if it was 36, which was I said. Nicole was right, it's 88. So if you can modify your sheets, let's see.
In just in 24 versus the 30-something that was split.
No, it
over
was
2
in
years.
both years,
We programmed 88 for 2 years.
in both
24
years,
and
but
25.
yeah, Nicole's number was the correct number, so.
How come so much? I thought it was just for equipment, was it not?
It is just for equipment, so depending on what needs to be purchased, the fund can support it, so we budget that.
Can't PEG fees be used for the camera system in
That
the
is
jail?
for-
That is.
that is-
But down at the jail, no.
Oh.
Oh,
Well, there could be
Unless we're
some
gonna live
education.
stream.
Live stream.
Right, we're teaching them
Teaching.
cameras.
Wonder if we could sell that as a reality show.
I know Judge Buckley always wanted to live stream all of court, like every court proceeding.
It'd be a whole new version of Big Brother.
Yeah.
Okay, 2:46, we'll be back at 3:15.